Good afternoon. It's really good to get a win. It's also good to get back to work, and that needs to be the appropriate attitude. We're working on a short week. Got another division opponent coming in here, and so one that presents some unique challenges. I'll get to some of the unique challenges that the Ravens present, but first I'll have a quick synopsis of last night. Not a lot of new things to add per our discussion last night. A lot of good quality efforts from a lot of people. Particularly the running backs. It was important that those guys were heavy contributors in the running game and in the passing game, really kind of for obvious reasons. We were lacking depth in some other positions. Like I mentioned last night, I thought, being without our top two tight ends was challenging going into the game. Obviously, we were able to pick up Nick via a trade, but just was unsettling not having a complete week of work with him. The other guy at the tight end position being a rookie and Zach Gentry. So we just wanted to get guys on the field that we felt like were capable varsity playmakers, guys that have been here. So that's why we moved in the direction that we moved in terms of utilizing James and Jalen. It leveled the playing field. It also limited Mason's exposure, quite frankly, to the defense. When you got a young quarterback, sometimes you can assist them by turning a 70-play game into a 50-play game. And sometimes a bunch of exposure is not good exposure. So I thought it was helpful to him to chew up some of those snaps, to limit some of his exposure to the defense while putting the ball in the hands of some capable men and being able to produce some plays. And it was good enough to kind of gain some traction and keep us on schedule and put us in some manageable third downs and things of that nature. Off of it, we were able to stretch the field a little bit, not as much as we would like, but we were able to do it some and produce some points. On the defensive side of the ball, I thought our ability to stand up against the early adversity really set the stage for the day, particularly after some of the discussions we've had in recent weeks. We turned the ball over twice in the second half of the game versus San Fran and wasn't able to hold those guys to field goals in those instances. And that's just what quality defenses do. And not that we took any different approach in terms of our preparation for it. We just acknowledged that that's a significant component of good defense. We acknowledged a week ago that we fell short in that area and really had fallen short in that area to this point this season. And I think the guys really took it personally and were able to stand up in that moment. And I really think it was a catalyst for the night that followed. Obviously, the night was not perfect on a lot of fronts. We got a lot of work to do, but it was good enough to get a win. And I think that needs to be our story. That needs to be everyone's story. I think that's what we all strive for, particularly at the early stages of the season, finishing the first quarter or the first four games as we push into the next four. We're all still very much developing, but we all better find the type of traction that provides a consistent winning formula, and increasingly so as we go down this road, particularly against division opponents like I mentioned earlier. From a health standpoint, not a lot of clarity from last night's game. The guys that were evaluated after the game are still being evaluated. Both guys are downstairs. James Conner with his ankle, but again, he was able to go back into the game. Cam Hayward with his quad, again, he was able to go back into the game. But these guys may be limited some this week, and we'll let their practice participation and the quality of it be our guide in terms of their game availability. I think the same could be said for some others who are working their way back to participation, those being Vince Williams, Vance McDonald, and Anthony Chickalo are guys that are hopeful. We'll see what their participation looks like. Probably less so with Rosie Nix as he continues to work back from his knee. But those other ones probably got a pretty good chance. Again, we won't speculate. We'll see what their practice participation is like and kind of go from there. Now, in regards to the Ravens, they present some challenges for us, challenges that we hadn't seen. The second time we played them last year, I think, was Joe Flacco's last start. We've seen some of Lamar Jackson, but we hadn't seen the totality of it in the ways that a lot of people have. Looking at the tape, obviously it's grown, and he's experienced the natural maturation process that you expect from guys from year one to year two. He's doing an awesome job of administering the offense. The offense is really challenging, quite frankly, because it stresses you in a lot of ways. He's got the type of speed and agility that really stresses a defense on the perimeter. So we got to do a great job of constricting and containing what they're capable of doing on the perimeter. But you can't be so loose on the interior that downhill runners like Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards don't gore you. And so when you got physical downhill runners like those two and a quarterback that's capable of getting on the perimeter, man, you're really stressed in a lot of ways defensively. Couple that with his growth and development as a passer and his utilization of their solid tight end core and dynamic young receivers, that's why they've done some of the things that they've done through the month of September and done it in a big way, man. We're going to be really challenged defensively this week. Not only schematically, schematics is just part of it, but when you're built the way that they're building, you're capable of creating matchups and one-on-ones. Your schematics have to be sound, but your fundamentals have to be sound as well. There's going to be some one-on-one tackles, quite frankly, in this game that have to be made. You can't get multiple people to the ball in the ways that you get multiple people to the ball when you're playing an offense that's this versatile, that has a quarterback with a skill set like this. So, you know, we got to make our one-on-one tackles. We got to be schematically sound. We got to try to get after them and not have a catcher's mitt out the whole game and dictate to them some, but it's easier said than done. I'm excited about this prep process in preparation for the game. You get some challenges there. Forget stopping their talents on Sunday. It's difficult to duplicate their talents in preparation because, you know, we don't have a quarterback that looks like Lamar Jackson in terms of how he moves and throws and all of those things. So, you know, we'll have some challenges there. Like I mentioned earlier, they got some talented young wideouts. They got a big-bodied guy that makes combat catches. They got a speed guy that's capable of going over the top. They really got awesome talent at the tight end position and depth. They got a good offensive line. They utilize some things, some unbalanced, some tackle over things. Just like I was talking about some of the things that we're doing with Mason Rudolph to limit his exposure to the defense, the myriad of things that they do really limits your opportunities to get after Lamar Jackson in the conventional ways that you get after a quarterback. So that's an asset to them as well. On the defensive side, they're the Ravens, man. They got quality players on all three levels. They're very multiple up front, not only in terms of people that they employ, but the schemes or the gap distribution, you know, really challenging. They get to choose what their personality is week in and week out because they're so multiple with their front. In the secondary, they do a really good job of both man and zone and hiding those looks. Quality cover corner and Humphrey, they drafted in the first round out of Alabama a number of years ago, really appears to be coming into his own. Earl Thomas obviously is a significant addition for them as a center fielder. He's back there with Jefferson. You know, they're without Jimmy Smith and Young, and so they're getting some other guys emerging at the cornerback position, but it's not a lot of drop-off in terms of their personality and the ways that they work to get after you. So needless to say, they have our attention. They got some of the best specialists in the world. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Their punter and kicker are both excellent. We can't play the field position game and expect to win it. Those guys have long-range field goal kicking abilities. They're field flippers in the punting game. So we got to be really good in those areas. But just largely, it's good to get back to work and get focused on our next AFC North opponent. And we understand the ramifications and the significance of division play, and particularly when you're in the circumstances that we're in terms of not getting off to a good start, it makes it doubly important. Questions?
Coach, you were successful with the Wildcat last night. It's known as a gimmicky offense. Is that sustainable throughout the year? And you also suggested to take pressure off Mason. Where do you need to improve offensively to make Mason successful?
I just think continuity with the current pieces that we have are going to assist there. The fact that Nick is here another week, you know, that Zach Gentry has another game under his belt, that Deontay Johnson has another game under his belt. I think those are significant components in terms of aiding him in the ways that you suggest. I acknowledge that the Wildcat is somewhat gimmicky, but at the same time, you know, all of us in the National Football League are prepared for it week in and week out. We just don't get a lot of physical reps when we don't anticipate it. So from that standpoint, because it's on video, I would imagine that Baltimore is going to be prepared for it. But I imagine Baltimore is going to have a certain level of preparedness for it because of the nature and the functions of their offense. So, you know, we did what we had to do to win that game with given circumstances and the players available to us, and we'll shape a plan that puts us in position to win this one with the current mix of players and under the circumstances. And I acknowledge that it could be different. I acknowledge that it could be very different, quite frankly, than what you saw on Monday night. We're just in a fragile state right now, and we need to do whatever it is we need to do to move the ball and win football games.
Were you involved with suggesting the Wildcat, or where?
I'm involved in everything that we do. I don't run from that. I embrace that. I enjoy that. I enjoy providing that defensive perspective on some of our offensive discussions. You know, the last time we brought Wildcat out probably to that degree, we were on Monday night in San Diego a number of years ago, and we probably won our third or fourth quarterback and some other things like that. So, you know, you can't run it every week, to your point, but it was effective Monday night, and we'll see if we utilize it in a different way this week. I think that's just the challenge of the National Football League, not only for us, but for all of us. You know, what people are working on, what they're ready to employ in detail and utilize against you, changes week in and week out, and that's exciting.
Mike, that San Diego game, to the best of your recollection, did Lev hand off or shovel out of that at all, or did he just get the direct snaps and go?
Man, you come on. You think I remember the intimate details?
Planning it, did you plan it the same way that you did this one?
Very loosely, you know. Hey, we're down tight ends and a fullback, and we got a young quarterback. Hey, how about Wildcat? Take a few snaps off the game. You know, I think conversations start like that.
I think the reason I'm asking is the guys, both Samuels and Connor, said that their familiarity helped to implement it quickly because they had both run it in college. Was that?
I don't think there's a running back in the National Football League that hadn't run the Wildcat at this juncture. It's not as cute as, you know, we like to make it out to be.
Mike, what did having Ben on the sideline offer for your team last night?
Nothing in terms of playmaking.
But in terms of just having him there.
You know I'm into the tangible.
Mike, what is it about Jalen Samuels that made him a good option for that Wildcat?
You know, he's a multi-talented guy. He displayed that on his NC State tape. Man, he was a jack of all trades at NC State, man. He was an H-back type. He was a Wildcat type. Maybe he caught 70 balls, you know, in the passing game. Those are some of the reasons why we really valued him in the draft. And, you know, from time to time, he gets to show that versatility in a lot of ways.
Mike, both with Mason individually and the team collectively, what do you need to see change to be able to stretch the field in the ways that you want?
We just got to keep growing and getting comfortable with the division of labor and the tools at our disposal, meaning the players and what they're capable of relative to the people we play. We're going to keep working. That's just part of it. We're not where we want to be. I doubt anybody's where they want to be. That's just life in the National Football League.
Is Mason ducking out of those throws in a way that you're comfortable with at this point?
No.
When Deontay, a young guy like that, fumbles, does something need to be said about to him, and what does it say?
Don't fumble anymore. You know?
Though that he came back with the game.
You know, these guys are at this level because they're able to bounce back from the circumstances that you mentioned, not only on our team but on any of these teams. You know, you're not a National Football League player unless you can stare adversity in the face and overcome it. That's probably not the first time he's put the ball on the ground in his life. You know, you show me any successful person in any walk of life, I show you a guy that's failed a lot and found ways to overcome it and endure. So, you know, I'm not surprised when these guys respond appropriately to negative plays or negative outings. I'm more concerned about how they respond to positivity, to success, and their ability to remain singularly focused in the midst of that. I think that's probably more telling about the man in today's game than what we were just talking about.
Mike, last year, I think you talked about how the lack of turnovers weren't commensurate with the amount of sacks that you had, and that elite defenses make splash plays on defense. You're seeing more of that this year with the turnovers being hand in hand with the sacks, and why?
I think really it comes down to ball awareness. And so that's something that we've really been stressing, not only through the team development process, but way back in the spring. If you want to create turnovers, man, first you got to be a group that's aware of the ball, who's carrying it, how they're carrying it, and the opportunities associated with that. I just think in general we're displaying better ball awareness, and it's producing opportunities to get it.
Is it Mason's own performance in stadium that will be your guide as to when you can spread his wings, or is it more of a tangible week-to-week thing where you're going to try to broaden things?
It's going to happen week to week, and that's a reasonable expectation. It's reasonable to expect him to be better with each and every outing. It's reasonable to expect us to ask more of him with every outing. It's reasonable to expect him to meet those standards of expectations more fluidly with every outing.
Like when you said you don't have anybody to simulate Lamar Jackson and what he does in practice, do you use a player at a different position, a receiver, running back, defensive back?
I think you lose too much in the passing game when you do that. We'll make do with the guys that we have, and that's just the reality of it. I'm sure everybody goes through those things. No one has a quarterback that moves and throws like Lamar Jackson, so we're not alone in that.
Mike, will you use the rush, 5-man rush, you think, against Lamar Jackson, or use the spy that you didn't use against Russell Wilson?
We're at the early stages of plan development, to be quite honest with you. I'd be making it up if I answered that.
Coach, Steven Nelson seems to be playing off the receivers. Is he catching up with your defense, or is this
He's doing great. Yeah. He's doing great. I like his attention to detail. I like his professionalism. From time to time, we put him in awkward circumstances because of the nature of how we play. I just like everything he's doing thus far. I look forward to it continuing to be a positive aspect of our play.
You discussed Deontay bouncing back. Is Moncrief doing anything to get back in the mix offensively?
He is. He's working extremely hard at practice. He had an opportunity to have a helmet on again in the last game. He only got 3 plays, but I just like his attitude and his work, and we'll keep working to see if an opportunity presents itself. And more importantly than that, if it presents itself, is his level of readiness when it presents itself, because you know, you don't have to be in this thing a long time to realize that the boomerang comes back around, and he needs to be ready for it when it does.
You've used Benny Snell a little bit, including last night. How do you like his development so far?
Really like what's going on with Benny. I think what's going on with him in the special teams phase is always an indication of an upward trajectory. He is a running back who's making tackles in the special teams game. I think he's got 4 or so tackles on the season. He's on our kick coverage units, and so he's proven that he's a football player first, and those guys usually make themselves available to you in a variety of ways. So we like the direction his growth and development is going.
You had Mark Barron and Devin Bush both made some big plays last night. How do you like their progress at inside linebacker, especially them playing next to each other?
You know, I think both guys are growing, and boy, we need them to. One guy is new, one guy's new to us, so you're always concerned about the communication end of it when you're talking about that. But like we mentioned about Mason, they've been better with each outing, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. I also think it's reasonable to expect it to continue. I know that we're going to need it to, particularly this week.
Mike, the pass interference call you challenged, moving forward, will that not affect what you may or may not want to challenge?
I have no idea what it's going to look like moving forward. If anybody does, I'd appreciate it. You know, I don't think any of us have a feel of what that looks like, and I'm just being honest. So I don't have any idea what I'm going to do moving forward because it appears to be a moving target.
Mike, any reaction to the Vontaze Burfict suspension the league handed down?
None.
Mike, as a member of the competition committee relative to replay, I mean, is it frustrating to you or annoying to you that a rule has such little clarity?
Hey, it's just frustrating as a football coach. But, you know, there's a lot of things that's frustrating. We're trying to get it right. It's just difficult to nail it down at this juncture. I'm sure to get better as we go on.
You guys spend a lot of time going over a lot of that stuff.
Tell me about it.
Mike, what would getting Vince Williams back mean to your defense, particularly?
We'll see. You know, I don't want to speculate because I don't know his availability or level of availability. So we'll see as we go through the week.
Was that Boykin you were referencing in your opener?
Yes.
Did you have your eyes on him at all? I know you took the receiver in the 3rd round.
Man, you know, we look at all those guys. We had Boykin in. We had Hollywood Brown in. You know, we turned the stones over.
Anything
Coach. All right.
Great. Thank you, guys.